Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. The primary purpose of this press conference is to discuss the findings of the District Attorney's Office in regard to an ongoing investigation that was conducted by the GBI into certain unaccounted for controlled substances within the Special Investigative Section of the Gwinnett County District, or of the Gwinnett County Police Department. I have a statement that I'm going to read from, and then we'll take questions, but and I'll make copies of this available to you. It begins by saying, in March of 2010, at the request of Chief Walters, the GBI began an investigation into the possibility that drugs were missing from a safe at police headquarters. In October of 2010, the findings of that investigation were turned over to my office for review for possible criminal charges, and we're here today to announce my findings in regard to the criminal charges. The investigation initially began when 3 kilos of cocaine were found to be unaccounted for. In looking at the evidence, I was able to determine that 1 kilo of cocaine was used in a pending case for a legitimate law enforcement purpose and had been secured in the evidence room but was not properly documented within the internal documents of the drug squad. As to the 2 remaining kilos, in an audit that was done in July 2009, the wrappers for those kilos were found, but the actual substances were not, and they have not been accounted for. The wrappers were labeled with the control numbers from the original assignment. We know that those drugs were created by a court order and that was handed down in January of 2010, and they were discovered missing in 2009. The problem, or one of the problems, was that the lieutenant who discovered the discrepancy did not report it to his superiors until February of 2010, and the investigation was not initiated until March of 2010. Also, during the course of the investigation, the GBI discovered a discrepancy regarding the whereabouts of another quantity of drugs. These included a quantity of cocaine as well as several pounds of marijuana and various pills, including false drugs that have been used in drug operations. There was documentation that indicated that the drugs had been destroyed in November of 2008. However, that documentation was unsigned as required by policy, and the witnesses who allegedly witnessed the destruction at the animal control incinerator had no memory of the event. Based on a review of all of the evidence, I personally believe that the drugs were in fact destroyed. However, like other aspects of this case, I can't prove either that they were destroyed or not beyond a reasonable doubt. And so there's insufficient evidence to reach an absolute conclusion. The criminal investigation in this case was hampered by several factors. First of all, there was a failure to follow established procedures, which resulted in incomplete or absent documentation of the handling of the drugs. The second problem was that while many of these transactions, including the destruction of the drugs, were videotaped, when the data was moved to a new server here at the police department, it was all corrupted and lost, and we were unable to recreate the transactions through videotapes, and were unable to resolve the questions one way or the other. There were discrepancies within the police department between policies that were applied to specialized units such as K-9 and the drug squad and the other officers within the department that caused some problems with a failure to follow procedures. There was evidence discovered that the security of the safe itself had been compromised, and on at least one occasion it was discovered standing open by members of the narcotics squad. Also, a number of officers who were interviewed knew the location of either the keys and or the combination, and a number of supervisors had cycled through the unit and the combination had not been changed. And then finally, the person who was primarily responsible during this time period for documentation and security was under criminal investigation for independent acts that are unrelated to this investigation. In fact, is currently under indictment. Was indicted last Wednesday. So based on all of these factors and the fact that we cannot identify a single individual or individuals and cannot state with absolute certainty that drugs have been stolen, that's why I keep using the word unaccounted for. Based on those two factors, I've reached the conclusion that at this time I cannot charge anyone with any criminal offenses, and it is my intention to close the investigation. I want to thank the GBI for their work. I want to thank the members of the Gwinnett County Police Department for their cooperation in the investigation and the efforts that they made. And I want to stress two things. Number one is my role in this investigation was to determine whether or not criminal charges were going to be brought. Matters of policy are up to the police department and will be addressed by Chief Walters. The second thing that I want to stress is that the retention of narcotics and controlled substances for either training purposes or for legitimate law enforcement operations is an accepted practice in the law enforcement community. It is a valid practice. It leads to good cases when properly controlled, and I hope that this episode leads to those controls and that the matter can be resolved. Thank you. I will take questions after Chief Walters statement.
Thank you for coming, folks. I too want to thank Director Vernon Keenan and the members of the GBI for the hard work and professionalism they demonstrated during this investigation. When this situation came to light, in addition to calling in the GBI, I also ordered an internal investigation to be conducted by our Office of Professional Standards. The purpose of this investigation was to determine if departmental policies had been violated. The investigation revealed that existing policies had not been followed. Additionally, the investigation exposed weaknesses in our operations that necessitated the creation of new procedures and implementation of heightened security measures. These changes are meant to prevent similar occurrences from happening in the future. And incidentally, those changes have all been reduced to writing, so you can see there's about 15 of them, and those are available for all of you to take when you leave. These measures have been implemented, and management oversight has been greatly increased. Even during this investigation, our Special Investigations Section continued to work hard combating drug trafficking in Gwinnett County. In 2010, they made 1,274 arrests, seized over 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine, 193 pounds of cocaine, 1,600 pounds of marijuana, and seized over $900,000 in U.S. currency. I recognize that this incident may have undermined the confidence of the citizens of Gwinnett County, and it's my sincere hope that the measures we've taken will help restore their trust.